Andrea, today we are discussing Mystery 101 Killer Timing. Was this one that was an explosion of fun and excitement, or was it just a bomb?
Bum, bum, bum.
Yes. This is Eric,
This is Andrea.
and this is Hallmark Mysteries and
And
more.
more. Well, we are going to
Ah,
be talking about one of the fan favorite mysteries. So, this is the movie that everyone voted on was their favorite from Mystery 101, Killer Timing. And I have not watched Mystery 101 since they originally aired. Like, this is not a movie I necessarily go back and binge on when it's on. I don't necessarily watch this one.
wait,
And
do
so,
you
I,
do you like avoid it though? Like so when because it's a marathon at least once a
no,
month. You're not like just on a Saturday just having it on background?
no, I'll usually skip it and put
Oh,
on Murder She Wrote on Peacock.
of course. Okay.
All right, here's the recap from the movie off the top of my head because the IMDb one is another nightmare. So this one is the one where an escaped serial killer has an attempt on Travis's life, or so they think. And Amy and Travis team up with an FBI agent who is also Travis's ex. And so this is kind of the one where Amy is looking for the new dean of students at her college. And so it's got a lot going on. So would you like to share what you thought of this one first, or do you want me
I
to dive in?
I will go because I think I may shock you.
Oh,
Are you ready?
okay.
I'll lead with my ranking.
Okay.
A five. I
I'm not
think
shocked.
this is just maybe it's definitely one of the apps. Obviously, it's a five, so where do you go up, right? But it is one. It is my favorite. First of all, Mystery 101, by far, and I think it's just one of the. If you just go episode by episode across all the mysteries, on Hallmark, it is probably one of the absolute best mysteries just out there. And what kind of makes it that way is
Question quick. Did you read
yes.
my notes? I legit wrote the exact same first sentence as you just shared.
Oh,
Same exact thought.
I did not. I'm not an IT guy who hacked into your computer, which comes into play.
It does.
Um, but if you look at it, it's essentially four mysteries wrapped into one. You've got the Wolfman going on, you have the Goffs, you have the Mummy, and you have the IT dude. And you don't really know what the mystery is. So, as sleuthers, you're trying to solve it. But what are we solving? You don't really, you're like, oh, I think this is it. But then it turns out, oh, wait, is this the mystery? No, that was just setting us up. Is this the mystery? And I just found the way that all four of them worked so seamlessly together was just brilliant writing. Of course, I'll go to, I'm pretty, I think, vocal is I think Kristoffer Polaha is the best actor in Hallmark, and Jill Wagner is right up there with him. She's just as far as if you just want to go like pure talented acting ability, I think she's way high. And then you bring in Erin Cahill as Kate. She's another one of those who I think is like, I think everyone on Hallmark, they're talented, right? For the most part. There's very few who are like, you're like, oh, maybe not. Like, they come once a year or something like that, right? But Erin Cahill, like, of all the people they could have gotten, there is a short list of people who I think could hang with the two of them. And I thought she did it beautifully. I love the way that they worked her character into it. I think it totally made sense. It added some depth to the background of Travis, who kind of usually avoids his background. And, when you all of a sudden you have Aaron's walk right in, you can't really avoid it at that point. A couple scenes that I really loved in there were with Amy and Kate when Amy, is like, "Oh, you can come spend the night at my house," which she kind of does a little begrudgingly and puts her in. And then Kate tries breaking the ice with like, "What's going on with you and Travis?" To which Amy pretty much blows it off. And then she's like, oh, humor, that's a good way to deflect, you know, things. And then Amy's response is, "So is good night," and then just leaves. I thought that was absolutely like just no, I am not talking about this with you. I am out of here. But then obviously they sort of warm up to the two of them, and I just like the way that Amy and Kate uh, interacted together, and I thought that Kate reassured Amy, you know what, don't worry about his past. At least as far as I'm concerned, I am not an issue. Everything is good. Keep moving forward. Um, Other things I liked about it was like and there's a little forecasting of what's coming. We have a really good trivia today, but like the explosion or when they're getting shot, it's like or a call coming in. It seems like every time they were about to really connect, something happened that interrupted it, um, a la killer timing, right? But I thought that was once again getting into the writing of the mystery that just it just is it's that whole proverbial onion. There's so many layers to the story. I also couple other things. I love that Graham knew who Kate was when Amy. I don't think she knew, but Graham was like, "You know who Travis's ex was, right?" And her name was Kate, and it's kind of like that light bulb goes off for Amy, which I liked that scene. Um, and then also I loved the little thing right at the end when they kiss and everything, and Graham calls and Travis just mutters, "He's got killer timing." I thought that was just a brilliant way to work the title into the whole movie. And then the last thing I'll say, it may be a trivia, it may not be, but as you said, Amy is in this one trying to, she's been selected to help out because the person who was supposed to be selecting the new dean was in a ski accident. So they ask Amy to run the process. And so she's supposed to interview all the different candidates. And from previous issues, which you may re- remember, it's I think Professor Monk and Minter. They were supposed to actually come back and interview as candidates to do little callback to some previous episodes, but turned out to be a little too much to fit in the episode, so that was cut out. But that would have been kind of a fun little callback to some previous episodes there. So, but all in all, like I said, I just think there's so many layers. It was so well written, so well acted. It was just a great, great episode. So, what about you? It sounds like we're going to be pretty similar based on your saying I stole your first line.
Yeah, I mean, what am I supposed to add to that? Because that was a great recap and basically how I felt as well. 5 out of 5. And I wrote this might be one of the best single mystery movies in a series that Hallmark has done. Like, that was my first line because I completely agree. The multiple twists, but they were all connected. It had you guessing, at the end when, Amy and Travis are in her house and you're like, oh, everything's solved. But, there's still a little time left. So if you're a regular Hallmark, sleuther, you're kind of like, this is a lot of time, like 10 minutes is a lot to kind of build. And so you're like, is it? This is it? And then, they have the gunshot and then there's one more layer to this. And so I think that those things were great. I mean, just great writing and just how it all kind of came together. Erin Cahill, love. Like, she is probably one of my favorites. Her and Emily
Absolutely.
Ullerup are my kind of top two. I love both of them. And so having her come on, she's wonderful. And I think those dynamics played really well. And it showed Travis, like, his face I watched after he was like, oh, you two, oh geez, did you talked about me? But like, Kristoffer Polaha played it just so perfectly. Like, he didn't play it like he was like overly concerned because there was nothing to be concerned about, but he didn't play like, oh, like, I'm not like a little concerned. It was just like the
Yeah.
perfect expression. And so, speaking of him and his acting abilities, could someone else have pulled off that face and just that right, just perfect for what Travis Burke, what we've known him as to be. I think that was great. I love that they left us with the Alistair and the brother missing. So at the end of this movie, they left us with that. And then that next movie, that is the movie. And so I think that they did a really good job of, again, Jon Christopher Plummer putting those in there and just like, hey, this is what we're going to do. And just as he ended that last movie, like he had a plan for the next movie. And so I like that in his writing, and that we kind of go on this journey. And it felt like more than just, some of the mysteries, they feel like just self contained, 2 hour blocks. Like, here's your mystery. Whereas these really do feel like a series and it's ongoing, and we're really getting some movement to the story. And so having watched this again and having watched, three of them again, I'm like, wow, this actually might be moving up in my, will it be a top five? Potentially, in terms of this as a series. It's wonderful. It's wonderful how it's all tied together. And I can definitely see why this is always a fan favorite. And maybe in the future we'll get more of these where they start to intertwine, and so we can kind of build on this and build characters. I think that's why this one is probably such a big hit.
I agree. The interesting thing, like you say, how they do intertwine. The cliffhanger was actually filmed later. That wasn't the original ending.
Mm-hmm.
And Hallmark said, hey, we want a cliffhanger for this going on. And when the whole mention of Alistair early on with the salt pig, like, didn't know that there was going to be that fifth or sixth episode with it, but they came back and reshot that as the cliffhanger. But I think they learned their lesson. Don't ever do a cliffhanger unless you for sure have that next episode coming, right?
Yes,
So, but
agree with
yeah,
that.
I agree. And you're right. Now that you mention it, like even, the ones that I love, I'll go Gourmet Detective. Sure, they progress and, Curious Cater, they progress and you see like the relationships and things like that expand. But the actual story, you're right, they are still fairly capsulated amongst themselves. Whereas Mystery 101, sure, it still has that, but then there's little notes that do continue through that tie them together probably more, you're right, more than any other
Think Hannah
mystery out
Swenson
there.
tried to do that as well, but then the same kind of thing happened to them. They kind of got burned with Cameron leaving, and then they kind of are like, "Whoop, okay, about take. We gotta, kind of
But
rewrite Mike," because they had that ending where, oh my goodness, did they break up? Obviously, Cameron was in that next movie, but then, departs after that, and so maybe they had a different progression of, they probably did, of what the story was going to look like, and then had to kind of turn it around. I hope that doesn't mean that Hallmark will go away from that, because I still think that this makes a better series than ones where we get just the self-contained one-off. I don't mind a few of those, but I also really like how they just, one flows right into the next.
I wonder with like Jane, since they're going to be doing
Yeah.
them right in a
Yeah.
row, if there will be some of that a little more tied together, considering there, because they were probably then, because part of the thing too is if you think about just how they make them, say they have two mysteries a year for most of the series, right? Going just back in time, they were written fairly, months and months later. Whereas if doing like Jane and they're gonna, hey, we're gonna film these all in a row, they're probably written kind of at the same time. So to have that consistency in there and some of those little ongoing things probably is going to be a little easier to do because I'm not saying like the writers don't go back and or remember everything they did, but when they have a long gap between the two,
It's easy to
that's why it
forget
probably comes
details.
out that way, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's interesting. So
Well,
all
what
right,
about the mystery minute? What do you think there?
I'm going to go back to the fact of it just being those four layers. Like, did you have any idea there was even the actual mystery that was the mystery in this one, right? The IT dude. Like, you didn't even, like you said, you thought things were wrapped up. You thought the Wolfman was the actual mystery, and the Wolfman turned out to be a red herring, right?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of being a character, it was a whole mystery that was a red herring, where that's what we're all focused on, only to find out the real killer or attempted killer um, in this instance was actually a completely separate character that wasn't even on our radar. So, we always talk, oh, were you surprised? Not only was I surprised he was a killer, though he did seem a little shady, but whatever. But not only was I surprised that he turned out to be the bad guy, I was just surprised that it even turned out to be a mystery. And yet it fits so perfectly. So, I have to say, I loved it. And the irony of this is, and why I think this is just the best episode, and I don't think it's a knock, and we've talked about this before. Usually on Mystery 101, I can figure out who the killer is because you sort of look and it's that one person who comes in who kind of has this little role, but they don't have enough of a role, but they get on the radar and usually they end up being it. But because it's so well acted, because the characters are so well developed and the stories are so good, it doesn't bother me at all. It's not a mystery that I watch trying to solve. It's a one that I just get engrossed in, right? But this one, no idea. Like I said, because I didn't even know it was the mystery. That was such a surprise. So loved, 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 loved the mystery minute or whatever the mystery element of this one. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, that's the same. I love how sometimes we talk about how things feel like they didn't get enough screen time, but I think they did a really good job again of playing out all of these mysteries and putting enough screen time with them. So we didn't feel like we were shortchanged anywhere. I didn't feel like one should have had more screen time. I think they wrote it really well in terms of like, hey, I got just what I needed from, the Wolfman. I didn't need much more than what I got of him. And the Goffs. And just as how I had said with the True Justice, how I felt for the killer, I felt for the Goffs, like, and they have to go
Right,
to jail for like they felt like just such an innocent people. Obviously, they had some fraud in there, and they blew up the house and all the things that could have killed Travis. But like, you still felt for them, like the
right,
way they portrayed that, like you felt empathy for them. And even the neighbor, you don't really know what happened there with the wife. They didn't go down a huge rabbit hole, and again, we didn't need a ton more than what we got with him and how he, killed his wife and left her there. Like, I didn't necessarily feel empathy per se, but I didn't think of him as like the worst human ever. Maybe I should. But again, that's the way he played it. And I think he played it well because it was years and years ago. And so I think that those all developed, really nicely in terms of like, hey, I felt something for those characters where sometimes you feel, just as we've talked about, I think it was Jazz Ramsey, where you're like, I didn't feel anything for that teacher, where, I mean,
right.
nothing that would have drawn me to her, where it obviously we can, like, this guy committed murder years ago and I still felt something for her where I felt nothing for that teacher. So that can show, I guess, in the writing and the way that they portrayed it. And he had less screen time than we had with the Jazz Ramsey, element with the mystery.
I mean, that just shows you too. Think about it that they told four stories in this one. And to your point, they told them completely and thoroughly, right? And some of the other mysteries, we complain that with one that somehow they're not able to completely tell that story and tell those characters. And in this one, and it's up to say, oh, well, it's the fifth, so they don't have to do as much background. No, it still was building on things. And so you can't just rely on it being like, oh, those was already previously established. They told four stories completely. So yeah, it's just the brilliance of the writing of this one.
What about the romance?
They kissed, right? What else is there to say? Waiting and waiting, and it's like in the episode, like I said before, you're like they're come together at dinner, and kaboom, they're in the kitchen together, and pow, they're in the car, and all of a sudden, phone, like everything, and then finally at the end, like Travis is just like, screw it, I am coming in, I am kissing you, it's happening, and the kiss everyone wanted. So fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it was the sizzling chemistry, but again, just as my complaint with some of them, sometimes they take too long. They take too long to get there. Like, some of them, it makes sense to drag it out a little bit. This one, I feel like they could have done a couple movies ago. But when they finally did, awesome. But then again, you have one more movie with them, and then we cut it short. So I think that's also why people probably feel that hurt of like, we just saw them get together, and then we got the door slammed shut. So we didn't get to see it go from this to anything per se.
Yeah. And I'll say romance round, I'll throw it in there. I think there's like the one man romance, but relationship. I did like, as I mentioned before, how Kate and Amy actually connected. I do like Graham and Graham's relationship with Travis is you
Oh yeah.
see that they clearly talk, communicate. and everything. Oh, by the way, going back to a little bit of how they interacted, I love when Travis introduced who Amy is and says that she's basically an English teacher who consults. And oh, what are you? Or she's a professor, consults. Oh, are you like sociology? No, English. And she's like, huh. And it's like, oh yeah, mystery fiction, of which she's like, really, that's super interesting because Travis hates that. And so you see how much Travis' character has really evolved. And it's through he just embraces who Amy is and what Amy brings and all of that, and then as well as obviously his relationship with Graham, and he gets the book and reads it in the weekend kind of thing. So there's a lot of the relationship in addition to just the romance, but at the end of the day, the kiss, right?
Well, who is your standout character for
I
character
don't even know
corner?
why you have to ask. Of
It's
course
probably the
it's
same as
Kate.
mine. Yep.
Kate is same with you. I've got my
Am I naming
my
them
Mount
all?
Rushmore, and it is Taylor Cole. It is Brooke Burns, obviously. It is
Erin
Kimberly
Cahill.
Sustad and Erin Cahill. Like those
No Cindy
four.
Busby.
I
We talk
love
about
Cindy
Cindy a
Busby. I
lot.
think she's adorable, but like
Didn't quite make
she's
it.
it's just a different level, right? Cindy Busby just makes me feel good, and she's happy. I love her and stuff like that. But the Mount Rushmore, it's those four. Like if there is a movie on with them, I know it's going to be good. I know I'm going to like it. Even we both talked about this before. Erin Cahill, when you go back to what is that birthday or not the birthday,
The
the
bedtime
Christmas,
stories.
the
It's the
one where
bedtime
yeah, the bedtime
stories.
stories. Like it was so good until that final 15 seconds when the guy came back and ruined the movie. But up until that point, she was just brilliant. Loved her. And like I say, her ability is just next level. And I love Erin Cahill. She can do no wrong, right? So it's got to be. And it just makes me wish and want. I'm going to keep on my little mission of getting Windy City Mysteries, the prequel to Mystery 101, right? Going back to when Kate and Travis were married in Chicago. He's the tough cop and she's the FBI agent trying to make it work. I think it's such a good story. So it's my mission to get that produced while it's still somewhat relevant.
Well, Erin Cahill slash Kate is also my favorite in this episode. And I have like the reverse of what you want. I still think that, especially after watching this, I'm like, her and Travis have great chemistry. They still are on friendly terms. Like, I feel like she saw that he evolved. So why don't they do like a Mystery 102 and do present day? Like, hey, they got back together. They can move back to Chicago and do
As
it there.
the
But
hate, the hate, the hate.
what?
No,
I think it's a good idea.
no one would ever forgive Travis for leaving Amy.
Mystery 102. Let's go.
He can't leave Amy. It's got to go. It's got to go before. No, people
I
would
mean, we know that's
flip.
not going to happen. So let's just keep it going and just go into Chicago and they
There
get
would
back
be
together.
death threats if Travis left Amy.
I feel like people would enjoy this.
Mystery 101 fans, come on. No, no, not happening.
Fine, fine. Well, here's my trivia because I know we have a little segment after this, but I will share my quick trivia because they mentioned Minnesota in this movie, which I was pleasantly surprised at. So that's where the Wolfman was shot and killed. They said it was in St. Joe's, Minnesota. We don't have a St. Joe's here, but we do have a St. Joseph, and that's where St. John's College is. So they were very close, like just a quick St. Joseph. They would have nailed it. So that was my trivia. Now this is
Interesting.
way more fun trivia that we have coming up now.
All right. So for my trivia, I decided rather than me go ahead and hop on the Google or go to IMDb, which as we talked about IMDb at the beginning of this, sometimes it's not always the best source. I decided to go to the actual source. And here is Jonathan Christian Plummer giving a little insight. Okay, so when we do our trivia, we always, go ahead and get on the Google, go to IMDb and come up with some, interesting facts. But today we have none other than the author, Jon Christian Plummer. How are you doing, Jon?
I'm great, Eric. So cool to be with you again, as always.
Yes, it is fun. You do hold, I think at this point for sure you hold the record for most appearances. You also have the record for our two highest listened to episodes are both yours.
Oh
So
man,
we
that's
greatly
wonderful.
appreciate
That's great. Hey, I
greatly
appreciate
appreciate that.
it. Yeah.
But so one of the things we do is we like to, come up and share some of this trivia, some of the things people may not have known about the movie. And
Hmm.
who knows more about the movie than you do since you wrote it, right?
Yeah. Well, maybe the prop master too. They know a lot too. But anyway, all the crew people know so much. But yeah, I guess I know a bit.
All right. So first, you've told me that there's a little story behind the salt pig because it is a very random thing that just pops out. What do you got going about that
Yeah,
salt
well,
pig?
so that was really fun because so the salt pig, we got a salt pig. My wife and I, my mother-in-law came back from a trip and gave us a salt pig. Just like what happens with Graham, who brings Amy the salt pig from her uncle, which then comes into play in the
Right.
subsequent film. And that's just sometimes there's just like a throwaway line that ends up turning into an entire movie, which is really fun when that happens. And that this is one of those cases. But anyway, my mother-in-law brought us the salt pig, and I was like, "What is this thing?" And she's like, "I know, but you put salt in it and you leave it on your counter, and it's really easy when you're cooking." I was like, "Oh, okay." And we ended up. It is really useful. It's super useful. But then when I was starting to think about what was going to take place, I thought, oh, this would be fun to use as a weapon, to use salt as a weapon, basically. And yeah, so that's how that came about. But without my mother-in-law giving us that gift, that never would have been in the movie. So
Love it.
yeah,
I have a salt pig. They are very handy.
they're great.
And
They're
now that
really
I know
great. And
they're
especially when somebody's trying to kill you
right,
and you need to throw something in your face and you can just easily grab that salt and do it. Yeah.
I do. But mine has a lid on it. I have to get an unlidded one so I
Oh
can get
no,
to it
yeah.
quicker.
Well,
Yeah, you
that's
got a quicker
fine, but
access
with
for
when
self-defense.
if there's a guy there with who's got weapons, you need no lid. So
All right. I love it. All right. Another thing we have talked about are names mean something to you. You put a lot of thought into your characters' names, whether they be main characters, secondary characters, whoever they are. And
sure.
I know you're a sports fan. I'm from Detroit. You're a Rams fan from in the day. So there's
Hmm.
a certain pair of characters who do have a
Yeah,
name that means something to you. How did you
yeah,
come around with the
yeah.
names of the
The
na
Goffs.
the explosion
Yeah,
couple?
yeah. The explosion couple, the Goffs. Right. So they're named after Jared Goff, who was the former quarterback drafted by the Rams. Not We weren't super pleased with Jared when he was the Rams quarterback. There was a lot of frustration in my household around Jared. My son is really the big Rams fan because he's born in LA, and so yeah, it was a bit of an homage to Jared, who, by the way, in all fairness, is really doing great with the Lions. And I think part of it was he just needed to mature, and part of it was he plays better in a dome, and lots of things. But anyway, yeah, I wanted to name these people who are kind of half smart, they're half clever. I thought Goff would fit for
Well,
them.
he is the one back in his LA days where didn't he like have the thing about it was surprised that the Earth revolved around the sun and not the
Yes.
way around.
Yes.
So yes, he is
I
not
mean,
known for his
he did go to
mental.
Stanford University, apparently,
Oh, he
took
went to
some
Cal.
classes. Oh, Cal, even
Yep.
worse. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't know.
All
I'm
right.
not
Yes.
quite sure how he got out of Cal, but
I'm.
anyway,
I'm. He could throw the ball very well. Being a
yeah,
Lions fan, I am happy with Goff. And the funny thing is, when you like hinted about that, I was like, how did I watch that and not put two and two together with Goff? Because once
it's an
again, that
unusual name.
name.
I mean, it's funny what you say about names because sometimes names should, all names have meaning, of course, right? I mean, like literally every name means something, right? If you go to the etymology of the name, like plumber, is somebody who digs in the earth, right? And plumb and so, but then sometimes too, I just like to reference, obscure sports figures, or kids I grew up with or whatever. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
I love it. Like I say, here it
especially
is.
for Sonic.
What's the thing of, and this is the whole trivia thing. We watch the movie, we don't know you
Right,
personally in there, and then here's like the thing: the salt pig comes
right,
from you know,
right.
a
The
personal
gift we
story. The
actually
Goff.
got.
We're
Yeah, yeah,
we're watching,
yeah.
Goff have a
Throwing a
terrible
little,
Super
throwing a little
Bowl,
shade at the QB. Right.
and so we're
Yeah.
going to make the
Yeah.
The couple who can't get away with the blowing up a
Yeah.
murder or whatever, blowing building, quite right by Goff.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So another thing you talked about is that there's some like timing. The name obviously is killer timing too, but there's
Sure.
some like thing about when the explosions happen and the accidents and
Well,
things like
everything.
everything.
So
There's
like
a synchronicity to it.
Amy has that speech at the end where she says, "This week has been a textbook example of Jungian synchronicity," and it wasn't just the way the coincidences lined up. The events themselves were all about timing. The chemicals being timed to explode, the timing of Breyer's ski trip, the synchronicity book falling off the counter, and Joe getting his job offer right as Tabby was going for her promotion. And then there's our timing, which has been a little off, and and that's what leads into the big kiss. But so timing, and this whole idea of Jungian synchronicity, I was just really interested in that. I mean, then that all came from the idea. So we wanted to have an explosion. I mean, like sometimes these come from weird places. You just start with, hey, you know what we've never done? We've never done an explosion. Let's do an explosion. Let's blow a house up. And
Wait, can I quickly? So that's basically when you're getting ready to do the script, sort of the feedback you got from the network.
not
It
even
was
the
like
script, but like just the pitch, actually, just probably at the pitch level.
hey, we want an explosion. I love it.
Yeah, like let's put I mean, this is something Christopher McQuarrie talks about a lot. If you listen to him talk about the Mission Impossible movies that he writes, where oftentimes they'll find a place and then they'll say, "We got to write a scene to film in this incredible venue," and like we've never had Tom do a halo jump. Let's do that, and we'll figure our way to that. And so this was sort of like that, where it was like, let's blow something up, but let's also not just have it be, background noise. Let's have it be consequential, and let's put Travis in danger, because that's the other thing you want to. I mean, from a storytelling standpoint, and we were talking about this earlier off mic, is that it can't be the same thing every week. I mean, I think part of the reason Mystery 101 is so popular and so beloved is because we actually don't do the same movie every time. It's not, the cause of death, the means of death, the culprit, even the structure, like this one with a 33-hour time jump backwards.
I love that.
We hadn't really done that before. And so it was we were always, and I'm still working this way, always trying to shake things up and not give people the same exact experience. So that's part of where this let's blow something up was born out of. But then also it was like, well, what if Travis was injured in the injury? Because that's something you also want to do is, this guy who's always been so strong and so right on and so there, what if you put him in the hospital for a couple acts and, he's on his back foot? And that does, and then we had teased the Wolfman in a previous episode. And again, that was just a throwaway line. And it was like, hey, what if that thing that he talked about in the car in that other episode actually is what this whole new movie is all built around? And so anyway, that was another big change, was taking Travis out of Garrison, which we hadn't done up to this point. They'd always, well, that's not true. We'd taken him to Seattle, but we hadn't taken him back to the past,
Right.
which of course is how Kate got folded in. And again, this was part of his backstory from the first movie when Amy notices he doesn't, he's removed his wedding ring because of the tan line on his ring finger. And, that was just a little line, a little detail about him that he was divorced. But then we kind of explored that a little bit in subsequent episodes. And then we thought, look, this is a real opportunity because really that makes it not just about timing, but about time itself, because he has to go back in time in a way to do the Lewandowski trial, and a detective has to do that. They have to go back and remember things that happened 2 years ago sometimes. In this case, it's like a couple of years because of all the appeals and everything. And so but it's also him going back in time to this relationship with this woman that he was married to,
Right.
And so I actually, before this Zoom, I looked it up, and the word timing appears 12 times in the script, and the word time appears 24 times. So it's a lot about time and timing, and of course this Jungian synchronicity. And originally in the script, Amy was actually teaching Also, in a different class scene, she was teaching from T.S. Eliot's poem Burnt Norton, Time Present and Time Past are both contained in Time Future, and Time Future contained in Time Past, this poem. And, because it was one of my favorite poems, and I love Eliot, he's one of my favorite writers, and he's so obsessed with the way that the present, the past, and the future are all contained, all self-contained, they contain each other. And so I thought, oh, if we're going to do a movie about memory and about the past. And then, of course, the whole Breyer case is really about the past, right? And this, it's really like the coldest case they've had up to this point. It's a real super mummified cold case.
Yeah.
And then, so that was all part of it. But then the Jungian idea of synchronicity and that things that happen in synchronous time have deep meaning, as Amy teaches in the first lesson. And so looking for that too. So what was the meaning of this? Well, the meaning is that, I mean, you can, if you were an English professor like Amy, you would probably read into it the fact that, Travis's heart is bursting for Amy. And, so the explosion is like, the meaning of that explosion is that they're getting closer together, the deeper meaning of that. And the explosion actually forces them together. And that's the time we first see their first on-screen kiss. Which follows the explosion. That's his immediate reaction in coming out of this concussed state is to kiss her, which of course is, what he truly feels. And so that's kind of like the second explosion and the one that doesn't hurt anybody.
So the literal explosion and then the metaphorical.
Yeah, and then the romantic explosion. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Love it. All right. Is there any other like things us viewers may not have caught in this script? Because it's obviously we look at it in a superficial level, and then there's all these things like deep down that you're weaving in. I just have to ask quickly, though.
I mean, I'll tell you a funny
Yeah.
trivia tidbit. I had originally wanted there to be scenes where Amy was working with the team on reviewing the different tenure files, and we were going to bring back Professors Mook and Minter, who were both from the original Mystery 101, and they were going to be in the. It just got too complicated. It was too many people, too many scenes, so it was easier to truncate that. But that was kind of a fun little
callback.
trivia thing. Yeah, that we were always trying to build on everything with the show. I mean, I loved. You didn't mention the twins. I thought it was fun to have twins. I love twins, and so here's a little trivia thing. That was a hat tip to our executive, our producer from Hallmark, Holly Overton, who was my executive on many of these movies. Who's brilliant, really, really incredible producer and creative producer, and she is an identical twin. And her sister is a mystery writer, among other things. She's
Nice.
She's a TV writer. Yeah. So that was a little very down low homage to Holly and her sister.
I'm married to an identical twin, so.
Oh, wow.
Though they get along, they are not.
Yeah, no, that was fun too. I mean, that was really, and that was funny. It was great too to give Bud. Again, and the idea of like seeing other colors of people. Here's Bud having like this kind of critical role in
Right.
solving this mystery, and because of his relationships to these two guys. And I thought they played it so well. Those guys were so well cast. It was really good. So
I love the scene when they were unlocking the locker there, and
Yeah.
the guy's like, "Well, I wanted to help you," and the other one's like, "No, I also wanted." Like how they're like literally will fight over anything
Yes,
and everything.
Yeah, the one-upmanship was great. But yeah, no, so I think it was really, to me, it was, I always like to make these movies about things, more than just the case, that there's deep meaning, as Jung would say. And, Simenon, who wrote the McGray books, was really influenced by Jung. And so, I always hope in my heart, oh, this will make people want to go read a Simenon book or go read about Carl Jung or maybe even read some of Jung or you never know, but hope springs eternal. So
All right. Well, thank you very much for coming on. I think
Thank you.
this is going to be the most interesting trivia one we have ever had because once
Great.
like I said, we
Well,
got to
I'm
go
happy
through
to
this
come back,
twice.
for
So
this whenever.
and yep, and so we're looking forward. I know you're working on things, so looking forward to
Yeah.
when those
Stay tuned.
can be
Stay
announced and come out and be public. And you're one of our absolute favorite writers. So thank you
Thanks,
very
Ed.
much, Jon.
Thanks, man.
On that note, we need to go have lunch.
All right. Well, it was fun. We will talk to you soon. See you later,
All right.
Andrea.
Bye.
Bye. This podcast was created by fans for fans and is not affiliated with or sponsored by Hallmark or the Hallmark Channel.